Seeing that our lives can be quite micromanaged with our phones in this day and age, it's no wonder people have gone to taking their dating into the online arena. The truth is, meeting quality people compatible for yourself can take quite a bit of time, and it's no wonder things like Tinder, among other dating apps, have become essentials in people's phones. And while not everyone has adopted this new practice, still today we see thousands of people swiping and meeting on a daily basis. The inconvenient truth of meeting anybody from a dating application or website is that you never really know exactly who they are until you've met them and spent time with them. While someone might seem funny or easygoing, it's guilty until proven innocent when it comes to meeting someone in this situation. Nobody is perfect, but certainly there are people out there that are just more twisted than others. That being said, what we're going to be discussing today is one such instance that is the epitome of what you're not looking for. But before I dive into this rabbit hole that Reddit has once again led me down, I just want to say one thing. I'm not typically a fan of subreddits like r/letsnotmeet. I enjoy a good creepy story, but I prefer things grounded in reality as it shows for an analysis of the situation. And since the subreddit uses the honor system, in many cases it is almost impossible to tell what's real and what's fiction. But the thing with this story, and the reason I sought to make a video on it today, is that the case tied to it is 100% real. So, without further ado, kick back, grab some popcorn as we dive right into this mini rabbit hole. Here is what the post from user LNM_throwaway9 said. I have reached out to the mods with evidence to verify the story. I just have to send them the link after posting. So it will take a bit to get verified. I'm noting this because I know this story seems completely ridiculous, but the girl I experienced this with is actually insane. Also using a throwaway because I don't want people to figure out who I am. A lot of people may have heard about this girl. She was all over the news after she stalked a guy, bombarded him with 65,000 texts, and broke into his house all over one date. We met shortly after she went on that date with him, and we were friends for a while before she broke into his house. At first, she seemed like a nice, albeit quirky, person. I met her when I spent a couple of months visiting the West Coast from the US in summer 2017. I thought she was cute, and we spent a lot of time together. We were living next door to each other for a few weeks, and we were never really more than friends. I stopped having any sort of non-platonic feelings after she started to talk a lot about a guy she had met on some dating website. Apparently, he was her soulmate, and she had somehow been guided to him by following her birth calendar. I would only later come to know that they had only been on one date, and he had never spoken to her again. I thought that was weird, but I enjoyed our conversations for the most part, and she was funny and nice, so we remained friends. Eventually, she moved on to short flings with a guy and then another girl from Tinder, all while still talking to me about this guy that she was going to marry, saying that she liked how jealous he got when she would tell him about hooking up with other people. A couple of weeks later, she started to get really erratic. I confronted her a few times on how she was acting, and she told me that she had recently stopped taking her meds, but would start taking them again. She came home one day and decided to tell me that she had a court date coming up for a DUI. Her plan was instead to leave the country and go to South America. I told her what a dumb idea that was, and even though she actually went all the way to the airport in a different city, she wound up coming back. Apparently, her soulmate was no longer answering her texts, and she took that as a sign that she should drag her ass back to where he was and fix their relationship. She was upset that he might be seeing other people, even though it seemed okay to her that she was seeing other people. Later on, she told me she had texted him and said if he blocked her, she would know that meant he wanted her to come find him. Obviously, he blocked her. Obviously, that didn't go over well. So she moved a couple of days later, and the summer was ending, and I moved back to the East Coast. I didn't hear from her for a little while, but then we started talking again through text and WhatsApp. She seemed like she was doing better. She told me she had found a roommate and was working on her art again, and just generally seemed like she was in a better place. I was happy to have my friend back and healthy, but that didn't last longer than a couple of months. Eventually, her behavior started to seem erratic again. She was sending dozens of texts at a time, and they were all over the place. Several of them had to do with her soulmate and how she was still following him, even though he had called the police and blocked her. I told her to stop, tried to get her to take her meds, and tried to reason with her 100 times. I was on the opposite side of the country and had no way of getting in touch with her family, who I never knew much about, or friends to try and get them to help her. She was a kind person and a good friend when she was taking care of her mental health, and I cared about her, but I couldn't force her to take care of herself. One day, I set aside some time to call her, and I told her she was overwhelming me and that she really needed to reach out to her family or someone who could help her. She told me I couldn't do that because she needed to stay with me or she would have to go back to her ex-husband. I don't think any of this is true, but she thought her ex-husband was going to have her killed or followed, that he had the entire police force in his pocket and had paid off her family to give him intel on her whereabouts and what is going on in her life. I had just moved for a job, and I lived in a small studio in a big city. I had no room for anyone to stay long term, and I wasn't about to do that anyway since she was starting to scare me at this point. She asked me if I was still living at my address, which really freaked me out because I'd never given her my address or put it anywhere online, and she wouldn't tell me how she got it. I asked her to leave me alone and told her we couldn't be friends anymore unless she took some steps to get better. She obviously did not take this well. Though I hated my tiny, cramped apartment, the reason I was drawn to it was because it had great security. It was actually on the upper floors of a hotel, although the hotel rooms were much nicer than the residence, and no one was allowed through the residence elevators unless the resident had given their name to security ahead of time and the guest had to show ID. After what happened next, I loved my cramped little apartment because the staff there kept me safe. It had been over a week since I talked to her, and because I blocked her number and blocked her on WhatsApp, she tried texting me from 4 different phone numbers, including text-free, etc., but I just blocked them all and never responded. I was walking home from work one day, and I was sure I saw her across the street from my building, but it was storming out, and I didn't get a good view. I rushed upstairs and calmed myself down in my apartment. Maybe I was just being paranoid. It's a big city, and lots of people have brown hair and glasses. I'm just worried about her. But then the phone rang. The desk was calling to see if I had forgotten to let them know I had a visitor. My heart sank. I asked them who was waiting. They said they tried asking for her name or ID, but she just walked out. And I knew it was her from the way they described her. I texted a mutual friend from over the summer. I wasn't really close with him, so we hadn't stayed in touch, but he told me she had lost it and that he had blocked her too. Apparently, she had gone back on the dating site where she met her soulmate and found someone who looked just like him in my city. She was convinced it was him and had come to find him. This was a very touristy city, but there's just no way this guy had just coincidentally come out here. I was sure she had gone bonkers, and I knew she was well aware of where that guy actually lived. I took a page out of her book and used a text-free number to text her that she should leave me alone and I would call the cops if she ever came near me or my building again. In retrospect, I shouldn't have contacted her at all, but I was emotional and not using my better judgment. She said she just wanted to know if I could help her find something and texted back really fucking fast and didn't even try to hide it. Then I deleted the text-free app so she couldn't reach me again. I lived in a very crowded area and I knew she couldn't get into my building, but I was still scared whenever I had to go take public transit alone at night or was walking through less crowded areas to get home. I had a friend who used to work for the police, but not in this city or at the time this all happened, and she would drive or walk me home from work whenever she could for a while. She told me I could go ahead and report it, even though they couldn't really do anything since she hadn't hurt me and nothing really happened. But I was embarrassed, and again, I didn't use my better judgment. I felt like it was my fault for engaging with her for so long. I knew she was mentally unstable, and I would still try to befriend her and help her. Maybe I gave her the wrong idea, that I could do more for her. I ended up moving to a new city for another job. After that, I didn't hear from her again. I later found out the reason why was that a couple months later, she had once again gone back to Arizona and been arrested for breaking into her, quote, soulmate's house and using his bathtub, and found a large knife in her car. So the story pretty much ends there with a couple edits, but let's dive deeper into what we just read. The first thing to note is that it's fairly obvious that our OP was a previous romantic partner to this woman prior to her going insane. However, just to note, it sounds more like a casual relationship, as our OP stated. I thought she was cute, and we spent a lot of time together. We were living next door to each other for a few weeks, and we were never really more than friends. Our OP claims to have spent a lot of time with her, and that she had lost all feelings for her when she brought up her soulmate. And if that wasn't enough, our OP also was close enough to know that she was taking some kind of medication. Getting to see this point of view is incredibly interesting, as the woman gradually decayed in her mental state over the months, all seeming to stem over one date with one guy from a dating website. Another thing to note is that our OP still stayed in contact and even confronted her on her behavior. Our OP was watching someone they knew closely go insane to the point that nobody felt safe around her. The last thing that our OP claims in the title of the post is that a friend had claimed to send this soulmate 65,000 text messages. Well, what if I told you she sent just a little bit more than that? I'll show you how I know it was more, but it was actually 159,000 text messages. Just for some perspective here, that's 523 texts she was sending to this guy every single day for 10 months. So let's dive into the details beyond the story on Reddit, because we've really only scratched the surface here. quick Google search of 65,000 text messages leads us deeper into this story. This is a case that is very much documented and public. This woman's name is Jacqueline Ades, and this person she became obsessed with really did only go on one date with her. As it turns out, Jacqueline met a wealthy CEO living in Arizona on an app called Luxy, which is an app dedicated to upscale dating. Just for reference here, some packages for this app's membership cost are as much as $1,000 every 3 months. So this app is clearly looking to define a demographic, and it appears that Jacqueline was trying to meet a fairly affluent guy. After going on a date with this unnamed CEO, she became frustrated with the one-sided nature of the conversation, and after she left Arizona to visit California, thereafter, she began to spam the CEO's phone with messages until ultimately getting blocked. But this wasn't the end. After the CEO in Arizona blocked her, she continued to message him and found other means of contacting him. She found out where he lived and ultimately led up to consistent death threats in April of 2018, to which the man finally decided he wanted to press charges. It would take hours to look through these messages, so I'm just going to flash through quite a few on screen right now. Upon looking through these messages, the ones to note are the most disturbing. She stated she wanted to bathe in his blood and make sushi out of his kidneys, as well as many random mentions about money. While not all of these messages are out in the public record, it's still insane just looking at a small tidbit of how frequently this woman was messaging this man. As a result, this ultimately bubbled over and led to the woman being accused into breaking into the man's home and bathing in his bathtub while nobody was home. According to this case, upon checking surveillance footage, the CEO recognized the intruder, to which the police showed up and found a large butcher knife in the front seat of her Mercedes. And something I want to note is that this woman was clearly not trying to hide her insanity. Looking through her social media, the post months before portrays just how manic and delusional she had become. This post on March 23rd, 2018 read the following. You can pause the video to check any of these out. And another post on March 21st, 2018, a few days earlier, read the following. Eventually, she missed her court appearances and was taken into custody. Thereafter, she did a few public interviews on why she did what she did. I will leave the link to these down below to watch the full thing. But for now, let's take a look.
All right, go ahead. Why don't you start from the beginning? How did you wind up here?
I wound up here on a road trip from Florida, looking for, I guess, love. And I was following the number 33. I used to wake up every day and every night at 3:33. It was always 3:33, 3333. So I kept following the number, and I said, why am I following the number 33? And I spoke to a psychic, and she told me I have the same birth chart as Jesus. So then I said, okay. I look up Jesus. He was 33 when he came to be. So I was like, that's a 33. My left eye axis is 33. The location I came from in Miami was 33111, the zip code. This zip code here, now the coordinates on the map, it's 33111. Then I find out he does stuff for the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea has 33% salt in it. Walt Disney's club is called Club 33. The reason they're called this is because the location of Atlantis is inside the earth. The coordinates are 3333. It's the soul of the earth. Each other and taking from each other and being selfish.
Jack, you know, when you tell people that you want to bathe in their blood and you want to wear their body parts and you don't want to be a murderer, I mean, that's pretty scary stuff.
I don't want to talk about that.
So in this journey of love that you were taking, I guess this is the last place that you imagined that you'd end up.
No, if Isaac wants me to go to jail, I should be in jail.
That's hard.
I appreciate it.
Why would you accept that then?
Because I love him and he should know better. He's the light, I'm the love. He knows what to do. I follow the rules.
Was Isaac nice to you? How did you
No, he's the meanest person I've ever met.
Why do you like him if he's that
We're
way?
soulmates. There's one boy and one girl. It's one boy thing, one girl thing. And it equals 3.3. Instead of having the number 0, we're only supposed to count to 3.3. 1, 2, 3.3. 3.3 is, he could stay at his villa in Mexico, but I didn't want to because I knew he would film me on cameras, and I didn't want to. So I thought maybe if I calmed him down over time, he would realize he doesn't have to stalk me.
Do you want answers from him? What are you hoping for?
I want him to do anything he feels like he should do.
So you're not angry with him?
No! Oh my God, no, I love him so much. I just want to love him so much, that's it. And if he doesn't like it, then I'll go home and I'll love my ex-boyfriend. What am I supposed to do?
Should he be afraid of you?
No. No.
Does any of this seem kind of weird at all to you?
No.
Because in a lot of people's eyes, they see this as weird.
That's because they're selfish. And they've never actually loved someone without getting anything back. The point of love is to keep giving it. That's the math equation. It's love equals 3.3, which is infinity, times E equals MC squared, which is light. Light is forever. L equals 3. L, if love was a number, it would be 3. So it's infinity times light, which is also infinity. So it's just forward, forever forward. And if you're selfish, you can't understand that because you want something in return. He's not giving me anything in return, and I still love him anyway. That's what love is. That's what the universe is supposed to be made of.
I mean, you carried a knife with you.
When?
A police report states that you had a butcher knife.
What? I never had a butcher knife. I had like little flippy knives on my road trip. People try to hurt me. I'm a single girl. I drove across America. I don't carry a butcher knife.
As you can see, this woman was basically unfit for trial, and as a result was placed into a 21-month restoration program to bring her up to competency, to which, if she is redeemable in a sane mental state, she will go on trial once again. If after 21 months she remains insane, she will be acquitted of all charges and placed into a mental institution. As far as analyzing the situation, I don't think much else has to be said other than this woman is clearly mentally ill. And what is really surprising to me is after going through this entire case, there's no mention of her being prescribed any medication whatsoever prior to this event, which does seem to contradict our OP's story. One thing I will note, though, is that the attorney assigned to her in her case mentioned that she is believed to be a paranoid schizophrenic with some symptoms of bipolar. And if she was diagnosed previously, if she had stopped taking this medication, these symptoms would definitely come back. But like I said, there's no record of her being diagnosed anywhere. So the way I see it, there's two things that have either happened here. One, she had a pre-existing condition, which was made worse by not taking her medication, or two, this event caused her to snap. I definitely don't want to sit here and diagnose this woman all day long because I'm not a professional, and I'm really just going off the public record of this case. In conclusion, I will say ultimately that you really never know where the internet is going to take you, whether it be through this rabbit hole with me today on this video, or if you end up on a date with a stranger who spams you text messages for 10 months. And I was also going to end this video on some PSA about being safe online, but I'm pretty sure this story speaks for itself. But regardless, this is Barely Sociable. Be safe out there. Have a great night.